Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Carver Conservation Commission meeting of Wednesday, February 17th, 2021. Our first order of business on the agenda is a presentation by Carver Community Preservation Committee requesting partial funding for joint conservation land purchase. Fran, I'm going to let you make your presentation, but there are other things that we're going to mention after your presentation. So just if you can, try to keep it short, because I think that we've got a couple of things that we've been able to find out that may affect our ability even to talk about or to think about this. Not talk about it, but think about it.
Would you rather go first?
Well, I see that you have a lot of the members of the CPC here. What I will tell you is that we're not going to make any decision tonight. There is a possibility that we may need to contact our council, town council. And the reason I say that is that we looked at the legislation that came from the state in 2001 when this was first developed, the acquisition fund. And the wording in the actual Chapter 484 of the Acts of 2002 say, withdrawal penalty taxes and rollback taxes collected by the town of Carver under Chapters 61, 61A, and 61B of the general laws shall be deposited in the conservation fund of the town and used for the purchase of land. We, the Conservation Commission, would not be purchasing the land, which may make it completely moot that we could use some of our funding to help somebody else purchase the land. That's the exact right reading of the state legislature. So the way I read it is that we can use the money to purchase the land as the Conservation Commission, that we don't have the ability to give it to somebody else to purchase land for conservation. Now, I mean, that's the way I read into it. I don't know how the other members feel about that. It is a question that we can certainly go to town council about, but it seems to me, and there's nothing else there. That's it. That's the entire thing. There's no, usually governments have 12 or 15 pages on something like that. I read you the law in its entirety. So it's my opinion, and mine alone, that this is pretty clear that the money that's in this fund has to be used for us to purchase property, not to be given to somebody else to purchase it, even though the end result could be the same. So I don't know if you feel any need to go on.
Well, I just, for
Can you sit at the microphone, please?
Yeah.
Point of order.
Yes, sir.
To take it one step further, we can't even use this money to maintain property that we already own.
It's purchase.
It's for purchase.
Yep.
We can't include partners, so we can't share in the purchase. We can't, it's got to be all or nothing with conservation, and nobody can oversee it. The exception of that was in the very beginning. There was a period of 5 years when the town could divert the money into the general stabilization fund, but that expired also in 2009.
14?
No, commencing on 2009.
4 or
it
5.
Expired in 2014. So a year ago, we voted to ask the legislature to approve a $500,000 transfer from this fund to the town because we didn't know what was going to happen with all this shutdown. That needed to be approved by the legislature. They took no action on it, so that money's back in our account. So we couldn't even give it to the town. Town meeting has no control over that money, the select board has no control over that money, and it's pretty cut and dried in my estimation, and I've had this conversation with Greg Corbo when we were talking about transferring the monies. It's so restricted as to what we can do with it. It's to purchase land only, and it's for conservation land only. So I have no problem with checking with council again and seeing what they say, but I think any deviation from what's written is going to take legislative approval.
And just so you know, I just got this afternoon.
Yep.
So otherwise I would have contacted you and said, this is where it is, but I didn't really have the time. It just came in, so. And I wanted to give you an opportunity to, to say whatever you wanted to say, if you still want to say that, so.
Well, I thank you for that, and I thank you for allowing the committee to come before you on such short notice. You guys have actually probably discovered one of the concerns of the committee when this project came before us is the fact that the town will not own the land. So, I think if we had understood even how the Conservation Trust viewed the purchase of viewed the land being purchased by an outside entity, that may have made the whole project, made the committee look at the whole project in a different light. Now, because of the time factor, we went on the site walk January 13th. The Conservation Commission did support this project. We voted on the project, and I'm sorry, I think it was last Thursday, whatever that date was. So really, it was a very short time frame between walking the land, getting the endorsement of the Conservation Commission, and then voting as a committee. I think at this point, we probably should lay everything out when we go to town meeting and let the taxpayers decide
I'm confused as to the taxpayers decide what, Fran?
whether or not to fund this project
Out of town funds?
through.
Because they can't use this money.
Well, see, what Fran's saying is that the CPC funding has to go to town meeting. They have
Okay.
to vote on it.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
That's what I'm saying, but
Yeah.
I would appreciate more insight from legal counsel as to whether or not, any other towns have used Conservation Commission funds in joint with CPC to make purchases like this for a coalition. I mean, there's a lot of the coalitions out there. There's, the Wetlands Trust, there's Audubon Society. So I wouldn't be surprised if somewhere this hadn't come up before.
Oh, it probably has, but it's not in our legislation.
Oh, you mean this is town?
This is the
state.
town, this is the town getting
Okay.
permission.
No. This is the state, but it's.
Well, it's the state dictating.
It's the state dictate, but it's specific to Carver. That bylaw is specific to Carver. It is not for every community.
Okay,
All right? There may be other ones similar for other communities that we're not aware of, and maybe that's something we can have council look into. And then if there are something similar for other communities, what has their allowance been?
right.
But again, it may be worded differently
correct.
that allows them to do that. So basically, all we have to go on is the state legislature legislation that I read from 2001, 2002, actually. And that language, to me, says that we can't give money to another entity for them to buy it.
And that may not be a bad practice for the town itself.
How much money are we talking about here? What's this whole
It's
project?
$190,000.
Total?
No, the purchase
Yes.
of the land is $230,000. Okay, it is for 38 acres of property, split up between Lakeview Street and Indian Street. 34 of the 38 acres is currently under a conservation restriction, which goes into perpetuity. So that 34 of the 38 acres is protected.
So this is that Griffith stuff.
This is the Griffith property.
Yeah.
There are two lots, one on South Main Street, one on Lakeview, and there's a large lot that's on Indian Street that is adjacent to conservation-owned property already.
And the bottom line is 290?
Yeah,
No, 190 for, 190. It's 230 is the total price, 190 from CPC.
So 190, and CPC was looking to share half that with us. Is that what
actually, we were asking conservation for 90, and CPC would put up the larger share. CPC would put up 100.
So if town meeting were to vote the 90, then CPC would still be willing to do the 100, or does town meeting? I
No,
imagine
town meeting would
has to
vote the
approve all of
100.
it, right?
Town meeting would not have to do the 90 whatever whatsoever. Sorry, I'm Bob Bentley, I'm sorry to come in late. I'm chair of the Community Preservation Committee. I know that there's a number of CPC members here tonight. We are here as interested individuals, not as a committee. And the request that came into us was for $190,000 with $30,000 to be funded from the Buzzards Bay Coalition. Buzzards Bay Coalition at our meeting last week recognized that they were responsible solely for that $30,000. It was not coming from the town. And so it's $220,000 that they're looking for in total.
You came in just late enough, Bob, and I'll just bring you up to speed real quick, if you don't mind, Mr. Chairman.
Go right ahead.
The Conservation Land Acquisition Fund cannot be used to be a partner. So if Buzzards Bay wants to kick in, we cannot kick in with CPC. We can't mix the money. So either Concom would buy the entire project, period, or Buzzards Bay and CPC gets involved in it and town meeting votes to do what town meeting wants to do with it. But the way the legislation was set up, and we'll check this out with council, but this is from a conversation a year ago, we can't partner with Buzzards Bay. It's the Conservation Land Acquisition Trust for just the Carver Conservation Commission to buy the property. So that's where the glitch comes in.
Yeah, Bob, really quickly, the legislation is that this is Chapter 44 of the Acts of 2002, an act relative to the disposition of certain taxes collected by the town of Carver. Withdrawal penalty taxes and rollback taxes collected by the town of Carver under Chapters 61, 61A, and 61B of the general laws shall be deposited in the conservation fund of the town and used for the purchase of land. The way we read that is that means conservation has to purchase the land, not give it to somebody else to purchase. That's the entirety of the legislation. There's nothing after that. That's the whole thing.
We couldn't even give it to the town in need last April without, we had to vote to request the legislature to release it for the town to use in the event they needed it during the shutdown. So we couldn't just be nice guys and vote to say, yeah, okay, let's just give this money to, the capital debt stabilization fund.
And the legislature never voted for us to do that, so
So now the money's sitting back
the
in.
money's back with us. So,
Well, I can tell you that the Community Preservation Committee believes that this is a good project for the town. This is,
I think all of us do too.
Yeah,
with
honestly.
the amount of land that's presently under conservation restriction, plus the ability for the Buzzards Bay Coalition to come in and actually actively manage it
That's where the glitch comes in.
to create trails
Right.
and things like that.
But that's where the glitch comes in from conservation money, is to have them manage it. That's where that whole partnership thing gets.
And I understand where the Conservation Commission is coming from. I think the committee believes that there are a lot of good things that can come out of this, particularly on the Indian Street property.
I think we're all in agreement with that.
Yeah, I don't think.
Great idea.
Yeah, I think that, if the language were different in the state legislation, it may be something that we would be looking at. But the way we read it is that the fund was set up by the state legislature for conservation to purchase property, not to grant to somebody else to purchase the property.
Or
And that's-
partner with.
And that's, I think, but we're gonna check with town council to see if our interpretation of the legislation is correct. But it seems to me pretty cut and dried. That's the way it's written, and it doesn't seem to be much room for any kind of loopholes there.
And I understand what you're saying, Mr. Jermaine and Mr. Seymour. I think our biggest concern is the fact that this was brought to us as a joint project from the Buzzard Bay Coalition and Carver Conservation Commission, not as a singular project from the Buzzard Bay Coalition.
We were notified of the project. We were never asked to provide any funding for it.
That's a fact.
That may be the fact, but that is not the correspondence that I nor Alan Decker from the Buzzard Bay Coalition purveyed to me as the chair of the committee.
Well, the only,
The information I got provided to me was that the Conservation Commission, through Brooke Monroe, that the Conservation Commission was fully in favor of this.
Right.
We are absolutely
We
in
are.
favor of it. That doesn't mean that we're gonna fund it.
we were
So I
never.
think there was some,
There's a big difference, we have no money.
I'm in favor of my wife driving a brand-new Escalade. Doesn't mean I'm gonna go buy one.
We don't have any money to purchase, other than the other fund.
I guess,
Don't write that down.
I guess I will sit here and say that suggests to the Preservation Committee that we need to be asking a huge amount more questions of subsequent requests from any entity in the town of Carver.
We really thought it was more of a, this is what we're thinking, what do you think? And we thought it was a great idea. I really wish it had been more detailed with, can you fund this, can you help this, can you buy this? Because then you would have known way back then, and would have given us time to do the research.
Back in October.
Like,
There were questions asked back in October and which were not answered.
Well,
by conservation?
Yes.
You know about any of that?
no, the only thing I'm aware of is that Brooke notified us, gave us a
Yeah.
copy of the map,
Yeah.
and said that she had talked to the Buzzard Bay Coalition, and
Yep.
the Buzzard Bay Coalition was going to the Community Preservation Commission
Yep.
to try to get funding for it.
Yep.
That's correct.
And that's,
It was never
That
brought
was
in
for-
that we should check.
and we all kind of said, that's a great idea.
Yeah,
They went to the wrong place.
Let me
Yep.
assure the Conservation Commission that from now on, the Conservation Commission will be questioned in detail as to what funds may be available on the Conservation Commission side as opposed to what funds may be available on the community preservation side.
Yeah.
And it is a situation where there are certain members of this committee who feel like we're being taken advantage of.
Well, I'm sorry that you feel that way. I think if you go back to your meetings, I think from the very onset of it, your first communication with the Buzzards Bay Coalition, they asked you for the full amount, which in and of itself should have told you that they hadn't asked us for anything.
Alan Decker came to me and asked me, how much money did I have available? Meaning, where my pocketbook, was my pocketbook totally open for them to take whatever they wanted?
Well,
Literally.
he never came to us.
If they came in and asked for $250,000, would we be able to give that, would we give that to them? I said, how about if you come back to me and tell me how much you might think you might be worth?
but that still doesn't involve conservation kicking in anywhere in that part of the conversation you just said. We had Joanna Layton come here talking about Wenham Shores and involving the state wildlife, and we were in favor of that project happening because it doesn't involve any conservation money. We think it's a great idea. They should do exactly what they're trying to do on Wenham Shores and the little island that's there and stuff. It's a great idea. But it didn't, nobody came and said, whoa, do you guys want to kick in
Right.
$10.98 to buy the driveway? No one asked that.
Right,
So-
we were never approached.
We were never approached to fund.
We never had a meeting with Alan here.
Let me assure you that the Community Preservation Committee from here on will be asking serious questions if the joint project comes in from the conservation.
That's fine. Mr. Badger, you had a question or comment?
I just have a couple points. As it's been mentioned, we're all in favor of this, and that is not in a non-committal way. I know there's been some discussion, side discussions, and that's really, from my perspective, the essence of the problem is there have been too many side discussions and not open hearings like we're having right now. This, right now, is the first open hearing that we've had, or an actual discussion between these two entities, these two parties.
I have to caution you that they are here as individuals. They are not here as the
Okay,
CPC.
that's fine. But in terms of requesting an audience with conservation, it's never been denied in the past, and a couple of the places to get answers are, one, going to Brook, which I hear has been done, and I also hear that there were problems getting, at the last CPC meeting, it was mentioned that there have been problems getting answers to things. Well, those questions started months ago.
Not that long. Our first meeting with Buzzards Bay Coalition was on November 19th. It was a very short time frame, as I mentioned at the last CPC meeting. Their presentation was on November 19th. We did the site walk on January 13th, and we voted last Thursday.
Right, but there was a meeting in between there that CPC had, where if there was a request to talk to conservation as a whole and not just one or two members to see what maybe we thought about it, as I can say that at the last CPC meeting, I felt uncomfortable with some of the comments made because it was more hearsay and not dealing with actual facts and not dealing with actual timelines that were synced in with the dialogue that was being used. For example, a lot of what we're talking, there are different combinations of arrangements that can be made for these conservation projects. One could be simply having a conservation restriction with a given group like Audubon Society. Another one could be a partnership with another conservation group. Another one could be to actually fund the purchase of a property. But all that has to happen in a dialogue that's not just before the stroke of midnight when we're at a meeting to vote on an issue that everybody's been well informed about. And so I guess what the biggest issue I take is that it seems that different individuals have a concern whether or not the conservation has an interest in conservation properties. And of course we do. We're still in the process of making it clear that we're using the funds in the right way and in a mechanism that is both legal and appropriate to our conservation as a conservation commission, a plan that we have. We've been looking at other properties that we had in mind. We hadn't been asked to support this. I think it's a great project, and I can't say whether or not we would or would not support it had it been brought up earlier. But we're discovering now that we're not sure that we'd actually be able to if we wanted to. And so again, I think with any of these bigger projects, if to Bob's point, if there are questions, they should be put together in a proper way where we can collectively work on something on this, rather than having this list of shoulda, woulda, couldas, where a lot of us are all in agreement with what we want to have happen. It's just doing it last minute is what I mostly take issue with, without all the facts in hand.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
thanks, Dan, for that clarification. I want to say that at our meeting last Thursday night, which was a Zoom meeting, where we had good attendance, we unfortunately didn't have as much outside attendance as we would like, but it was never articulated that the Concom was restricted in terms of how monies were expended. And that could have immediately precluded any further discussion.
You weren't here earlier. First of all, I want to say that I was on that meeting last week, the Zoom call, on another matter. I joined late, so I missed the matter I was there for. And it was when this,
You were there for this.
I was there for this conversation. And when Ms. Mello broached the subject of us paying half, or a portion of it, it was the first time it had ever been brought up at any CPC meeting. So,
Up until the time we went to vote on the project, we were getting information about the project. I was asking Buzzards Bay Coalition the hard questions. What are you going to do with this land? Can we get a parking lot? Are you going to develop? We were finding out about the project.
I understand that, but Mr. Bentley is saying that I should have known ahead of time about the legislation. I didn't. If I'd known 2 weeks earlier that question was going to be asked, I would have gotten this. This legislation, I looked up and got the answer on this afternoon. This is the first that I knew exactly what the wording was.
The prospect of conservation funding in part or in whole of this was not on the CPC menu.
Until last Thursday.
Correct.
I asked the question.
So was your vote
I mean, I
contingent
don't know.
upon us?
I don't understand what the problem with the question is.
I actually believe that
I just don't understand that.
Well,
We're
it
going
confuses, with all due respect to Bob and Fran, it confuses me that if you were thinking that conservation could kick in 50%, 80%, whatever the case might be, that you would reach out and want to have a joint meeting with the Conservation Commission.
That's what we're here
And-
for.
It was just explained, this is not a joint meeting of the CPC and the
No,
Conservation Commission.
Because the subject was broached at the last meeting, and it was, we had to vote yay or nay to move the project forward.
And you voted yea contingent upon?
We voted yay with the understanding that we would broach conservation and speak to them about going in as a joint
Okay, and what was your
project.
plan B if we said no?
we were going to fund it total.
And that's the way it's on town meeting, that's the
Right.
way it's going to town meeting.
And in,
I have submitted the article to Elaine Weston,
For the warrant.
the full amount.
So I don't understand what is the problem with asking you guys?
We're allowed to.
There's no problem with asking.
As a full amount.
do it.
We're not
But-
allowed to ask an additional amount,
Right,
but we can always reduce the amount.
right.
Fran,
I don't want you thinking that we're not interested in doing this. I'm telling you that we don't have the ability
Right.
to vote as a board to spend this money for this purpose.
That is
And if
fine.
someone had come to us 3 months ago and asked that question, and the only reason that I'm so well-versed with it is because it was brought up to me back in April as chairman of the Finance Committee, that this was a fund that was going to help the town finances, so I got an education back then.
Yep.
Up prior to that, I didn't know anything about this fund. And nobody else really did either. And now, just an FYI, there is legislation pending that's going to allow 61A land that turns to solar to remain in 61A. If that does happen, then our source of funding for this account goes away. So what's in there will be what's in there, and there'll be little tiny dribs and drabs, and that'll be it. There will be no more gigantic paydays from large solar projects that get pulled out of 61A and the rollback taxes get funneled into this account, because that will no longer happen,
And I'm aware of that.
especially on the dual use.
Yeah, Fran, I never said that you couldn't ask us for the money.
course you can
And
ask.
that's why we're here, we're just.
I
here
understand that. What I
asking.
was saying is that, what I was saying was that Bob just said that I should have last Thursday during your meeting said, well, the legislation says we can't do that. I didn't know. It was the first time I heard you even think about asking us for any of the money. I didn't know what the legislation said off the top of my head. I started looking into it. I got the answer today. That is why I didn't say anything last Thursday. If I had known 2 weeks before that and had time to look at it, I would have had this legislation in front of us last Thursday, and I would have told you that. This is the first I knew about it. This is why I'm saying it tonight. You know, it's,
Now, it's only my guess, and I could be absolutely wrong, but I think that conservation could spend this money for this project with CPC funds, because it's still taxpayer funds, but without involving Buzzards Bay. That's where the glitch comes in.
The
We
project's
can't
not
take on a
offered.
partner.
Yeah, the project's not offered to us, though.
So that's
That's
the
the
issue.
problem.
well, it's that, and also there's nothing for maintenance ongoing.
And-
Right.
And there are some, the CPC has looked at this and has realized that involving the Buzzard Bay Coalition is actually a good thing.
Oh, there's no doubt,
Oh, yeah.
Good thing for-
but it restricts us.
Because it will allow these properties to be developed and maintained
Yep.
as hiking trails
Yep.
with constant maintenance.
And I agree.
Right.
As really, really good things.
But I think also to your point about looking at things moving forward and future projects, I think that if word gets out that, you know, people who live in this town have the ability to grant property to the town of Carver, not to Buzzards Bay, to the town of Carver at a reduced rate, then that's something that we look at together, because we would own it, and this legislation now becomes valid, and we can use that. So, yes, I agree that let's look carefully, and let's try to get a longer timeline. I know that you're up against town meeting deadlines, which, you know, if you miss it now, it's a year before you can do it again. So I understand that. But, you know, I agree with you. I'm sure that somewhere out there are projects where we can join forces and do this the right way, and have ownership for the town of Carver as opposed to Buzzards Bay Coalition or any other group. But the way I'm reading this legislation is that we cannot pay this fund for somebody else to own it. That's the way I read it. And I will certainly talk to town council
Thank you.
and get their feed on it, but it seems to me pretty cut and dried. But I may be wrong. I've been wrong before.
Yeah, I think it's worth looking at other templates that have been used in the past. You know, for example, the Cole property that has a conservation restriction with the Audubon Society. I'd like to look further into how that was all put together. and-
That was bought by town meeting vote, though,
Right.
and that was.
That was,
spent.
okay.
So it wasn't.
Conservation did put in $10,000 on that project.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know where it came from.
Right, but it's town-owned.
Right.
Right,
Correct.
and that could have very
Yeah.
well come out of
Yeah.
that maintenance fund. We have a small maintenance
Yep.
account. Like, we've done some stuff over on Savory Avenue, and we have a small maintenance account that we can spend, because my question was, well, why don't we use this fund here to do some bigger projects conservation-wise, and we were told we can't.
Right.
Yeah.
So we can't even use it to maintain what we already own, because
Right.
it's solely an acquisition
For
fund.
acquisition.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think it is worth drilling down into the information to see if, for future projects, how, different ways that we can go about
Sure.
collaborating.
Yeah, and I think the key is ownership.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the use of our funds, the key is ownership.
Yeah.
So, not that we're reticent to use them, it's just that I think that in this particular case, we probably won't be allowed to. All right?
We'll
Thank
find
you.
out from council.
Thank you,
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you.
All right.
Do you want to get an answer when you do hear from council? Would you let the chairman know? And
Yes. I will do that.
Is, that's elected, is he in the CPC too?
He's just being nosy.
Oh,
He's got nomination paper.
All right, we'll
We'll do the minutes at the end?
do the minutes at the end.
yeah.
Let me turn off the sound on this. It's gonna drive me crazy. All right, next up, new hearings, 67 Crystal Lake Drive. Notice is hereby given in accordance with the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, MGL Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Carver Wetlands Protection Bylaw, that a public hearing will be held at 7:15 PM on Wednesday, February 17th, 2021, in Meeting Room 1 at the Carver Town Hall, to hear the notice of intent submitted by Nicholas Christie for the construction of a 12 by 14-foot deck onto the existing single-family dwelling. The proposed deck will be located within the 65 and 100-foot buffer zone to Vaughn's Pond, and a variance has been requested for the proposed work within the 65-foot buffer protected under the Carver Wetlands Protection Bylaw. The project is located at 67 Crystal Lake Drive, Carver, Massachusetts, map 62, lot 36. All interested parties are invited to attend.
You can pull over a second chair from right behind you. The one that says don't move because it will explode. We shut the electric fence off too.
Brooke, are there
sign
any
on
more
there,
of
no
these or
sign
just
on there.
these?
We got these, we haven't got any more copies?
There were 3. Do you have any more copies?
Oh, sorry. Let's see, I gave you both of them, right? Yeah, there's another one.
I don't really need mine.
Okay,
All right.
I was there.
pretty easy. The other one's,
Everybody got one?
I don't have one.
the other one's just a picture of the house.
I mean, I saw it today, so.
Fussy. While you're looking at that, can I ask him a question?
Yes?
We looked at your site today. Are you planning on leaving that tree that's right there in the walkway? Because we looked at it and said it doesn't look real healthy, and you may want to consider removing that anyway. So if you're thinking that's something you want to do, you might want to roll that into tonight's approval.
Okay,
Yeah, the one right in the middle, right next to the house.
yeah,
It looks like it would be, you'd be able to sit in your chair on the deck and you'd be able to rub the bark.
Yeah. So initially, we had asked for that with all the rest of the trees, and we were told to wait till this process if we wanted to. And then I was thinking, well, we already had the tree work done, come and go, and I didn't know if we were coming. But if it was,
You could do it at a later time. just
Yeah,
that
it was-
we looked at it, we saw the one you had cut down that had the big hollow section in it, and those trees are pretty tall right there near the house and stuff, so.
they were really tall.
Yeah, so that's something that, we all looked at it, and I think a few of us said, why didn't they take that one out?
Yeah, because it could be a safety hazard,
We just don't want it to land on your house, that's all.
Right.
Okay,
Right, well, that close, it might just lean against your house.
Stay there.
Okay, so, as Mr. Germain said, we were there today on a site visit. We saw where you want to put this, and, you had been in and talked to us prior, and everything that you said now made sense. It's a nice spot,
thanks.
and you're
That
nice
big
to have.
slide is gonna be nice looking out on the pond.
Yeah.
The biggest one we could.
I would too.
And whoever was working there today was working hard,
Good.
so, just,
We watched him.
I thought you'd like to know that, but I noticed he was working pretty hard.
I'd like to know that.
Yeah. No, he's bringing lumber down to your cellar, just doing, he was busy. I think the things that we discussed earlier were that you're going to have gravel underneath it. You're going to put,
We'll leave it permeable.
leave it permeable. You're going to use screw-in, corkscrew-type footings.
So we tried that on the front porch, and the building inspector didn't really like it.
What's he want, a sonotube?
Yes.
Okay, is that because of the sandy soil? It just didn't hold, or?
There, I'm not sure.
Okay, I was just curious. It doesn't really have much of a bearing. So you want to do sonotubes?
Probably the soil, maybe.
The building inspector probably is going to want sonotubes.
Okay,
He tell you how many?
yeah?
Probably,
I think it's 3 across the back.
3 across, you're gonna cantilever it a little bit?
Yeah.
So there'll be some deck hanging off, so there'll be like a 2/3 beam, and then there'll be
That's
some
what I
deck
was
hanging
thinking.
off.
yeah.
Maybe 8 feet out, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I have no
The
issue
physics,
with
yeah,
that.
and the engineering, but, yeah, we were gonna get it
Approximately how far from the house does it go to the sharp drop-off? Is that about 8 or 10 feet?
Oh, no.
More than that.
Is it more than that?
I would say.
It's probably 16-ish.
Oh,
You'd be
okay.
able to walk around the back of your deck
You could.
without
Several
falling.
Oh,
feet.
okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
All right,
yeah.
it seemed closer to me. Maybe it's just because of the steepness.
Yeah, I didn't bring a tape measure.
Okay, so you'd have just 3 sonotubes across the back of the lake side of the deck and just attached to the house, or would you have sonotubes
Just
under?
attached to the house.
Just attached to the house,
Right,
okay.
yeah.
So you're talking a total of 3 sonotubes.
Huh?
Okay,
I know, we don't have one yet.
it looked fine to me. And, you know, I did look at the tree that's there, and it looks like one side of it's pretty much dead. And the side that is a little bit more facing your house still has foliage on it, pine needles, which makes that side heavier. So you may want to just look into that. I think we can add that tonight as part of our order of conditions. And that way you won't have to come back in. We generally, if people want to take down trees within the 65 and it's a threat to their house, they just come in and tell us and we give them the okey dokey, as Mr. Germain would say. But we can take care of that tonight and save you a trip in the future if you want to take it
So we'll
down.
add that, yeah.
Does anybody else on the board have any comments or questions
That'll look good.
regarding what we saw today?
Look good.
Make a motion, we close the hearing for 67 Crystal Lake Drive, DEP 126, I don't know.
Yeah, we don't have a file number yet, but you can still sign the order, and then we just won't issue it until we get the.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
It shouldn't be long. Is it, we get a file number from DEP?
Okay.
So that's probably, you know, they're a little slower than normal, but we'll probably have that within, oh, God, probably a week or so.
Right, you won't have to come back.
No, you don't have to come back for that.
Once we have that, we can start the work on the
Yeah,
deck?
yeah.
Okay.
We can't, we can sign tonight, we just can't issue it,
Yeah.
because we have no reference to tie it to. We just gotta wait for them to give us a number.
I was just making sure there wasn't like another
Oh, no,
thing,
no.
waiting period or
It's not
something
another
else.
process.
No, no,
Yeah,
no,
well,
it's,
It's
it's,
another $5,000
Not another
filing
meeting.
fee, you can come back in
You
6
know,
months.
you know.
all right, it's been moved and seconded to close the hearing on 67 Crystal Lake Drive. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, okay.
Make a motion, we approve the NOI for 67 Crystal Lake Drive, DEP 126 to be determined. Period, and then
With the conditions.
we'll do the conditions with the variance. We need a variance, right?
Okay.
So it's
Need
gonna
the
be
variance,
separate, so
yeah.
this is,
All right.
We'll add
this
the-
is the motion to approve the NOI,
Okay.
period.
Second?
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to approve the NOI for 67 Crystal Lake Drive. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None? 5-0.
Okay.
All right.
now,
Now the variance.
Make a motion, we approve the variance for 67 Crystal Lake Drive, DEP 126, to be issued with the following conditions, that there be 3, I'm going to say you're going to want to do 8-inch sonotubes, or did he tell you 10-inch, 8-inch,
I
12-inch?
think we used 8 or 10 up front. So I'm gonna assume like 10.
Up to 10, let's say up to
Yeah.
10,
Okay.
then you don't have to come back. So up to 10-inch, 3 sonotubes, approximately 8 feet, 9 feet out from the house, because they're going to cantilever the deck.
Okay.
And then otherwise, as drawn on the drawing, and then a separate line, they can take that tree down that's
I'll add that,
beside
yeah.
the, if they deem that they need to remove it,
Yeah.
they don't have to come back and make that.
And then gravel underneath the deck.
It will be permeable underneath the deck, not, you don't have to do gravel, but
No.
it's a permeable surface. In other words, you can't cement pad it.
So does that mean remove the concrete that's already there, probably?
I would prefer you do that, because that will make that whole area permeable. It'll get rid of that cement that's there now. You can leave the rest of the walkway where it is, but what's under the deck, I think we'd like to have taken out, no?
Just chop it up. It's gravel.
Yeah, you could break it up and leave it there and just cover it
Just
over.
break it up and leave it there.
Yeah,
A little broken?
Yeah.
as long as the water can get down through it.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's the same thing, so, it's gravel, so.
yeah.
So if you don't mind doing that, so, you know, either bust up that cement or remove it, whichever is easiest.
Okay.
Right, and just the standard barriers, Brooke?
Yeah. Erosion control.
Construction bar, or erosion control barriers.
Yeah, just right at the edge of the hill.
Yeah.
How long do those need to stay?
Which,
Whatever you're doing won't roll down off the side.
sorry, quick question. Which is your deck? This one or this one?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Which one of these is your deck?
The yellow, I believe.
Okay.
It's tough to see what,
Yeah, I think the other one you
Because
gave me
one,
was-
one shifts off, which means that technically you'd need to have a fourth sonotube because it's not a complete ledger board. So,
I think it's gone with the yellow one.
yeah, no, I just didn't know if,
what's the other one you have?
I'm not sure you
Same
gave me.
problem.
You're coming straight off the slide, or
I don't-
straight out, am I correct?
It's offset and it has a stairway along the side of your house.
That's where they were gonna do it. Yeah, I think they squared the house.
I think that was way back,
okay.
Oh,
when we
okay.
applied for the building
I-
Oh,
permit.
that's okay, so that's not a good
I,
thing.
no, I gathered, it's just,
Yeah.
we're approving a 12 by 14 that's, a complete ledger board. This one with the 12 by 14 is offset versus
Right.
this one's a complete ledger board, but it's 12 by 12. So,
I think it's-
it's been approved, but I just,
Okay,
Oh, she doesn't have the wrong.
12 by 12. You know what, you might throw in put a fourth sonotube in there
what?
in case the building department wants it. He's
Yeah.
going 12 feet. It all depends on what inspector shows up.
I could say contingent on
Yeah,
the
and the
building.
inspector could walk in and say, look, I want one at each end and stick one in the middle. And
Right.
somebody else come along and say, I want one at each end and space the other two.
I just noticed this, and it's really, I think that just so that everything's tight and neat in what we've approved,
Yeah,
this drawing indicates the dimensions as being 10 by 10. It's 120 inches by, 120 feet, inches by 120 inches. And it's written right on here. So if you can get this redone that shows 12 by 14 in the orientation that you're going to have it, just so that we have it in the record, because this says 10 by 10.
Could I look at that?
Yeah.
oh, this is the one you gave me. That's the 12 by 12.
Maybe we're supposed to be
Actually
12 by 12.
12 feet 0 inches.
12 feet 0 inches.
Yeah,
So it's 12 by 12.
12 by
12
12.
by 12.
12 by
feet, 0
12, not
inches.
12 by 14. Okay.
12
Yeah,
by
12 by, yeah, I don't know what 12 by,
12 by 12.
12 by
feet
12.
0.
Sorry about that.
All right.
Yeah, because that was on the,
Okay, so, because you had said 12 by 14 when you first started, so I knew it didn't match because it was a square.
It is 12 by 12.
Okay,
That was, I think this confusion was when we first submitted to building inspector, or building for the permit, it was 12 by 14. And then by the time we got back to you and submitted, it became.
okay, then it's fine.
that was the building.
Okay,
Okay.
as long as they match.
You
it.
should allow
Good.
the sonotube in the center with 6 foot to the edges, but we'll put in that he can add a fourth tube if
Okay.
the building
I'll say
department
contingent
requires
on
it.
building, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Most likely they'll do 3. There's no need to spend the money for a fourth one if they don't require it. But then if they did and it's not in
Right.
the approval and the variance, then you've got to come back here.
right.
All right, so we
Little
have a
trouble
motion
started.
with the orders of condition. I need a second.
Second.
Somebody.
Got a big okey dokey.
Yeah, we got we have three, we have a second, third, and a fourth. Okay, all those in favor? We have a motion and a second on granting the variance at 67 Crystal Lake Drive. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None?
Enjoy your
Approved.
dick. Let us know when the cookout is. We'll come in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you guys very much.
Okay,
Have a good night.
You too.
You too.
okay.
There you go.
All right.
1, RDA.
Next up, Lot 1, Ewell Street.
That's the one we went to Saturday, well,
Notice is hereby given in accordance with the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, MGL Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Carver Wetlands Protection Bylaw, that a public hearing will be held at 7:30 PM on Wednesday, February 17th, 2021, in Meeting Room 1 at the Carver Town Hall to hear the request for determination of applicability, RDA,
I'm giving you reduced copies.
filed by K&G Development Corporation to determine, C, whether the work depicted on the reference plan is subject to Wetlands Protection Act, and D, whether the area and/or work depicted on reference plan S is subject to the jurisdiction of any municipal wetlands ordinance or by bylaw of the town of Carver. The request is for the installation, construction of a well located approximately 68 feet from a resource area bordering vegetated wetlands, BVW. The property is located at Ewell Street, Lot 1, Carver, Massachusetts. All interested parties are invited to attend. Hi.
So my name is Rob Carlazon. I'm from Grady Consulting. We do the site plan for Lot 1 Ewell Street. So we're here for the RDA for a proposed well with, the location of the well is within 100 feet of the wetland. The wetland on this lot is, it runs along High Street and at the entrance of Ewell Street. It's outlined in blue on the plan, which I'm sure you guys can see in your plans in front of you. We have a proposed house, proposed septic system, and a proposed well. The house and the septic system are completely outside of the buffer zone. The only proposed work is the well, which is about, I think it's about 67 feet to the closest wetland. Basically, this well location is almost exactly the same as the subdivision well location that was approved several years ago. So that it's basically the same spot. Obviously, we have a little bit of tree clearing just to get back to that location. We have a proposed silt sock for erosion control, and that also acts as the limit of work. And that's pretty much it there.
Pretty easy.
We walked it today.
Yeah, the well's in a pretty good position. It's
Yeah.
a little
Down a little
hollow surrounded by
Yep.
berms, separating you from the wetlands. I mean, it's almost perfect. The only lower area is facing your neighbor's backyard,
Yep.
Yeah.
so.
I have no questions. I have no questions.
No, does anybody have any?
This is the thing that was labeled Gilbert Estates we went to.
This is Gilbert Estates?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's correct. That's correct.
No cross-reference, no mention of Gilbert Estates in this. No mention of Evil Dead Drive today, so.
It doesn't, yeah, it's Ewell Street.
It's Ewell Street, Ewell Street.
Right, do you have a larger set of plans?
Yep, I have 2 copies.
Okay, so you have the whole
It's
plan?
on
Yeah.
those, it says Gilbert.
Yeah. Yeah, there were
Oh, it
just,
does on-
this is
yes, it
just a
does on-
copy of the area in question.
Reference the plan,
Yeah.
the date of the plan, the revision.
Yeah, we looked at them today when we were out there,
Wanted to make it neat.
actually. So, anybody else have any questions, concerns?
I'm gonna pass this along, I just wanna get the date.
I should
Okay,
write down
so,
the bottom.
January 23rd, 2021, is that the latest? That's there's no other revisions, that's it?
I think that's the only one, right?
That should be the only one. We did submit plans to Board of Health. We didn't get any comments back.
Yeah.
I don't know what the status is,
January
Okay.
23rd.
but this is.
Okay,
Yeah, pass that.
so, what's our pleasure? Do we feel that,
I'd like to see wetlands posts, little markers at the 65, so that it lets people know that they can't go beyond that.
Okay.
It's up to this,
that's fine, I don't know.
How many would you
That's,
like?
that's still, other than right where the wellhead is, the rest of that's all gonna be forested.
Yeah,
yeah, but I'd like to see a couple of posts in
Okay.
that tell everybody they can't,
Yeah,
you know,
we
You
don't
could-
get leaves and grass
that
clippings.
it marks it off, that's all. They're just them little stickers, the little
the little
Metal shield.
plaques.
shields that go on a 4x4 post.
The little plaques. that
Or you
go
can
on,
stick them
yeah.
to a tree. I mean, it doesn't matter to me, as long as they,
Okay.
as long as it's marked that beyond this is like, don't come in here.
Do you
Don't-
want it just down by the well, or do you want them along?
I think, I'd like to see them, I don't know, put 3 in it, basically. Put 1 at the wellhead and 2, 1 each on the other 2 sides somewhere, just so it's there.
Yeah,
Yeah, because otherwise.
And that would be along that 65, right along that line, so.
Right on the 65 setback, yeah.
And then whatever clearing you need to do to get to maintain the well is fine. Other than that, I don't have an issue with it.
Okay, so, I guess we need a motion
We
to,
need to close the hearing?
this would be to issue a negative determination.
right,
Right, but we need to close the hearing.
Need to close hearing, yeah.
all right. So I need a motion to close the hearing.
Also move.
All right, Jim has made the motion to close the hearing at Lot 1 Ewell Street.
Second.
Second, Mr. Jermaine. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None?
You want to do the motion, Jim?
Okay, I'll move again to,
A negative determination.
for a negative determination.
Lot 1 Ewell Street.
Lot 1, Ewell Street.
You'll see, no file number.
I'm sorry, I'll help you with that, too. As drawn on the January 23rd, 2021 plan. As shown
Which is that-
on that plan, which gets to the current plan.
Okay.
Okay.
And then in the order of conditions, we'll put in the three markers.
Yeah, well, we'll just add a condition, it's a determination, but we can just add it as a condition.
Right.
Determination.
All right, so Jim's made the motion. We have a second?
Second.
All right, Peg, second. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None. So 500. And we'll just,
Yeah, you just can add a condition to.
you're good to go. You're good to go with the 3 posts.
Okay.
2 okey-dokey. And the posts are 2,500 apiece, you can pick them up from Brooklyn.
The check
Prefer
for-
cash?
to me.
Oh, yeah. No problem.
As I get in as much trouble as I can.
I'll bet you wish all well locations were that nice,
Yeah.
that perfect. That was pretty choice.
Could be $5,000 by then.
It's gonna be a nice little lot down there. Looks like you had some tree clearing going on today. It's gonna be a nice little development.
Yeah, it will be. We'll be back here again for,
I got your other one,
so, yeah,
the lot 8, yep.
So we'll be back. and-
Oh, that's the
How
one.
many
on-
going in?
All the way back.
It's a 10-lot subdivision. There's wetlands on, I think, maybe half of the lots, so
Yeah.
we'll be back.
That's Carver, half of Carver's wet.
Are they keeping the houses mostly outside the 100, can they, or?
I think most of them.
Yeah,
There might be one, I think, that's, it might be, a part of the house might be
Down in
inside
the
the
back,
buffer,
yep,
but,
yep.
There was one, if I recall, that was way sort of in the back with a long
Yeah.
driveway.
Yep,
Yeah.
that's actually lot 8, so that's the next one.
Oh, okay.
We'll be in for.
Okay.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, good luck.
All right,
okay, thank you.
much.
thank you.
Have a good night.
All right, next up is potential amendments to the Carver Wetlands Protection Bylaw. This is a public hearing. I don't see anybody here to talk about it. Very quickly, just want to go through what the changes are proposed. On area 9.2.1.2, the purpose of this bylaw, it lists things that deemed by the Carver Conservation Commission to likely have a significant or cumulative effect upon the wetlands, included but not limited to the following. And there's a list of 13 things, such as flood control, storm drainage, fisheries, wildlife habitat, et cetera. We're adding invasive species to that. Under 9.2.1.3, the statement of jurisdiction, we are changing the language under Part 3 of that, where it discusses how we issue a variance, to change the wording to match the same wording that is in the 100-foot state guidelines, which says that no person shall remove, fill, dredge, alter, build, disturb, or make any changes to the natural characteristics of the landscape by human activity upon or within 65 feet of any wetland without a variance. And under number 4 of that, it says, except as permitted by the commission through the issuance of variance, no person shall build any residential dwelling within 100 feet of a cranberry bog unless the residence and the bog are on the same parcel of land under singular ownership and will remain as such. All right?
I'd like to see us change that wording to in perpetuity. Remain as such.
This is from KP Law.
In perpetuity.
No, this is their language.
I know.
Mr. Chair, do we need to specify within a cranberry bog, meaning edge of ditch, not edge of bog?
I think that,
You think that's clear enough? Because we.
I think it's clear
We've had
enough.
to do that at one point,
So
so.
it's never clear enough until it becomes a need to be clear enough. That's
Good
where all
point.
these
Right.
bylaws come from, is because somewhere along the line, a bylaw didn't say something.
We've
Right.
had this happen in the past,
Right.
so it's edge of ditch, not edge of bog.
okay, well,
Right, the ditch, yeah.
all right.
Yeah,
Somebody could
KP
say,
law
yeah.
doesn't
Yeah.
know, they'll only go by what we've told them our desire was, so.
I mean, because most engineers don't think they never have bugs delineated, because they always just take it from the
Exactly.
top of the
Well,
ditch. But you're right, somebody could
that-
argue.
so it's happened before in the past.
All right, the actual wording 100, within 100 feet of a cranberry bog is not changed from what's there now. That is not part of the revision. The only revision is unless the residents and the bog are on the same parcel of land.
Okay,
So it's too
All right,
late.
so the
to
100
have
feet from a cranberry bog already exists. This
I'd
basic,
like to see us, there be something in there that keeps the residents in the bog as a single parcel forever. And it doesn't say that.
well, it says, and will remain as such.
It will remain as such, and now we're gonna interpret as to how many years is as such.
Well, okay, if you want to,
The old owner passed away, the new people bought it, they didn't know they had to keep it this way, so they sold that bog off to Uncle Harry 3 months ago. We didn't know.
okay, so we can change that to, and will remain as such in perpetuity. Okay, we can add that.
I think it just defines it.
Yep,
yeah.
all right. The next section is 9.2.1.4, which are exceptions, and it lists the public utility exceptions and the emergency repair exceptions. And we've added number 5 that says, "This bylaw shall not apply to the normal maintenance or improvement of land in agricultural use,"
Perfect.
as set forth in MGL 13140. The next change is a change in the fee structure, and that's just a chart.
Yep.
The next change actually is under number 6, under notice of intent, is something that's already happening, and that is that the notice of intent shall be accompanied by an authorization form to authorize the
Yep.
newspaper to bill the publication costs.
Yep.
That's already happening.
That's already happening, yeah. It's
So
just not in the
it used to be that we do it and bill them, now they get billed, right?
We talked about that last year.
Right, but the bylaw didn't get passed.
Yeah, okay.
So
Yeah,
this is just
it-
language to indicate what we're doing now.
Yeah.
So that's the only change there.
Good.
No changes here. There will be, under the plans that need to be submitted, the site plan, we're adding one more thing that we would like on the site plan, and that is the setback lines.
Yep,
Shall be indicated based on the checklist below, and you'll provide the checklist.
yeah.
All right? No more changes here. Then under definitions, alter, under the definition of alter, there are a couple of added words. One of the says, examples of alterations include but are not limited to the following. And it says, driving of piles, erection, or repair of buildings, new word, walls,
Yeah.
and then, or structures of any kind. And then there's, the next bullet is placing, it used to say placing of obstructions or objects in the water. It now will say placing of obstructions or permanent objects or structures in the water. The next bullet point used to say destruction of plant life, including the cutting of trees. It will now say destruction of plant life, including the cutting of trees, shrubs, flowers, or grasses. A new alteration bullet is the introduction of non-native grasses, shrubs, trees, or other plantings. And that's it. Under the definition of variance, and this was from our town council, the commission shall have the power after the filing of a notice of intent and the conduct of a public hearing to issue a variance. It used to say to an applicant requesting to perform activities just as described. Now it says to issue a variance with respect to any requirement or prohibition of this bylaw.
Yeah.
Just a change in wording. Under, continuing under variance, it says,
What number?
this is going to the last page. It's under definitions. So it's 9.2.5.
Okay.
All right? And then under, still under variances, in order for the commission to issue a variance with respect to a particular project, it must specifically, this is what it says now, must specifically find based on clear and convincing evidence set forth by the applicant that owing to circumstances relating to the soil conditions, hydrological conditions, topography of such land, and especially affecting such land, but not generally affecting wetlands with the town. And the new wording is that no reasonable conditions or alternatives exist which would allow the project to proceed in compliance with the bylaw. So that basically is saying, let's look for alternatives first.
Yep.
All right? That no reasonable conditions.
Yep.
Then it says, a literal enforcement of the provision of this bylaw would involve substantial hardship, financial or otherwise, to the applicant insofar as the property cannot be put to any beneficial use without the granting of a variance, or that the work is necessary to prevent a threat to persons or property.
Looks nice.
All right? And that continues in that.
That one opens more of a can of worms than it solves,
Which one?
than what he's reading now.
About the threat?
I think it allows the use of going before various boards and committees and claiming hardship where there is none.
Well, let me finish. That finishes up in saying, and that desirable relief may be granted without material detriment to the values protected by this bylaw and without substantially derogating from the extent or purpose of this bylaw. That's in there now. This is new. No variance will be issued in cases of self-imposed hardship, such as the acquisition of protected land after the effective date of this bylaw. That means you can't go in and buy property that would require a variance in order to build and come to us and say, well, it's a hardship.
I have to, yeah.
It's a self-imposed hardship.
I have no choice.
You bought a hardship.
Right.
I think if you expect the bylaws to pass at town meeting, you better pull all that out.
Then how do we get around it?
I think there should be a fight for another town meeting. I think that you're trying to do too much in this one whack. I think once you get to this start of it, it's gonna look like we're overbearing and pushing our luck, and it's gonna get voted down.
Maybe we should just cut back on some of the,
That's what I said earlier. I think we should ask for a little,
yeah.
and then next year, pick the big one. Because this isn't, by not changing this current bylaw to what your wording is, it really gonna cause a problem here.
To me,
We've had a couple of issues, but it would be the same couple of issues. They'd come to us and we just tell them the same thing. The only difference would be we point to a bylaw and says, but it says here you can't have a self-imposed hardship. As opposed to we'd be telling somebody, well, you should have had buyer beware, you should have known better. So, it's only my personal opinion. I
Right.
could be 100% off the mark here, but I think that when it comes to these bylaws with conservation, you have people that there are never enough conservative bylaws. Then you have people who sit back and say, my God, we got more than enough now, what the hell do we need more for? And it all depends on how that shows up at town meeting. We start reading off page after page, and they're gonna see page after page after page, we're changing this one, and this one, and we're adding to this one, and adding to this one, and we're doing this one. And it's gonna be like, what the hell are you doing?
there's, yeah, there's,
Just me.
there's kind of a hot three, and for me, the one that we should definitely try to have in there is the self-imposed hardship one, because that, not having that in there has allowed different applicants to play other committees off of other committees.
But they still would have needed variances regardless whether the bylaw said self-imposed hardship. You can say, you're absolutely right, I should have known better, and I didn't, and this is absolutely self-imposed, but I still need relief, so I'm going to the ZBA to get that relief, or I'm going to the Conservation Commission to get that relief. Just because I'm stupid and I'm self-imposing my own hardship doesn't mean you can't give me relief from that. So the bylaws, that means nothing. You still need a variance. It doesn't say if you have a self-imposed hardship, don't bother.
Right, but that's also where that other point is about other
it does
ways
say
of
that.
solving the problem also help because, well, I'm sorry that this, you have a self-imposed hardship because you need to have this much square footage in a house. Well, you can trim down the square footage and now it fits,
I agree with you.
yeah.
But the fact of the matter is, it would require that still decision before a board or a committee. So whether it says that or not, if it doesn't meet the criteria of the bylaws, then we're gonna say you can't have a house this big. They're gonna say, well, it would be a hardship for me to make it smaller. We would end up saying, well, we're sorry, you need to make it smaller. Or we're gonna say no, and then there's appeals processes. So self-imposed hardship would have no bearing on it, whether they knew it going in, that this was an impossible build, that's the reason for variances. Let's
Okay.
not forget what a variance is.
So-
It's a permission to break the law.
Okay,
If-
but
if-
this specifically states, and I understand what you're saying. This specifically states no variance will be issued in cases of self-imposed hardship. It says none.
Great.
You don't get one.
Okay, you don't get one. Then my lawyer will sue the town, and we'll go and tell the judge how we have a self-imposed hardship, and the judge will say, go ahead and build whatever you want, sir, because, you know, you have a right to do that, and you paid money for this property.
I don't think we go
But-
that way.
I do.
I think-
So you're just saying that anyone can buy anything and build anything
No, I'm
anywhere?
not. I'm saying that there's.
Well, you are, in
They
fact.
can't use the excuse, this is a hardship, and have us sit back and say, well, because you're admitting to it being a hardship for you, it just says right here in the bylaws, don't bother. There's still relief that needs to be sought. They can be turned down.
Yeah.
But the fact that it's a hardship for them, of course it's a hardship. That's why they're coming looking for a variance, because they
Well-
were not allowed to build it with a building permit.
The intent of this, when I wrote it, was to have in the bylaws something that hopefully the potential buyer would read and say, I'd better not spend my money on this, because I'm not gonna get a variance.
Okay, so now we're gonna hurt the seller.
That's life.
Oh, too bad. And too bad for the buyer. I mean,
Well,
It-
there's some other
You're gonna
parties
hurt
involved
someone if
here.
they can't build
We
there.
have, building inspectors, we've got engineers.
I know you are.
I'm telling you what you're gonna get hit with at town meeting.
Okay, someone's gonna get hurt one way or
I
another
don't disagree.
if you can't build there.
I don't disagree.
Okay.
But nobody said that there's nothing illegal about being a foolish buyer.
Right, but having, it's not
The
just,
reason
there,
for the word caveat emptor, right?
it's not just the buyer that we're educating. We're setting up these bylaws so that engineers, building inspectors, all the people that are advising the buyer, so the buyer is informed,
Okay,
we're not the last line here, it's,
okay. All right, now, you think that this is the important one to keep in, about the hardship.
yeah.
I feel, my opinion is that the first one, about changing the wording on the 65-foot variance from build or enlarge any structure, parking lot, or impervious surface to remove, fill, dredge, alter, build, disturb, or make any changes, gives us the teeth to enforce the other one without
I agree.
saying it.
Okay, yeah, no, I had said that there are three that I think are really important of the corrections, that's one of the other three.
Okay, so I think we keep the first one. Are you okay with that, Mr.
I say we
Jimmy?
should keep all of them. I'm just saying, I think you're gonna have a hard sell
All
on
right,
the last one.
so we keep the first one, changing the language of the 65-foot
Yeah.
variance to match the 100-foot state law.
Yep,
We, would you get rid of everything in this,
No.
the variance changes, or just the line about the hardship?
I think the hardship line, I think when it starts to run off the rails and get detailed, I think that's when you lose your audience.
Okay,
I think that's what happened last year with some of the changes and the reason why there was misinterpretation of our intent. I like adding the part about the bog owners will not be affected.
Right.
That's perfect. So that heads off that argument right up front. There's absolute no problem with the fee changes. I don't have
Okay.
any problem with the cutting the trees and bushes and stuff like that. I'm not sure that needs to be really in there, but why not? That's not gonna affect anybody.
Well, it
And if they're
does.
gonna read it on a line, it's gonna be okay.
It's good to say that, though, because some people say, oh, I
don't
only cut the
disagree.
shrubs, I didn't cut a tree.
This is
Right.
where all these bylaws come from, is because somebody said it didn't say that.
Right.
Okay.
That's why we
Now-
have bylaws.
They have to be
Now,
specific.
the last thing that I had in here, under definitions, was the definition pulled directly from state law on what vista pruning is.
I'm fine with that.
That's perfect, yeah.
And I think
Okay.
there should be a disclaimer on that says, per wherever page you got it from in
From-
state law.
It says from 310 CMR 10.00.
It's under definitions. Yep.
Yep, so we'll leave that in. All right, so we'll take the variance out.
That can be just a clarification, so that'll be okay also.
Okay,
Just my opinion.
all right, so we're going to get rid of the hardship,
Which
the-
one, the last
Self-
one there?
self-imposed hardship under the variance definition. And we're going to add in perpetuity to the Cranberry Bog home land under single ownership and will remain as such in perpetuity. Other than that, we're okey-dokey.
Okay, yeah,
Yep.
All right.
that's great.
So I'll entertain a motion that we submit this as corrected.
So move.
We have a second? All right, got a second? All those in favor of submitting this as our article to the town warrant this April, say aye?
All right,
All right.
Yep.
we have
Any-
a placeholder for that?
We do?
Yep.
Oh, good.
Yep. Any opposed? None? Okay, so we'll do that, and hopefully we can get the meeting done in one night, because I think having it in 2 nights is what killed us last
Coming
time.
up? This year's
No.
town meeting?
Yeah.
Oh, that'll be one.
Well, when we had this 2 years ago, it was 2 nights.
Well, it's because there was a police station and a playground and, you know.
Oh,
that's
I
pretty
understand,
quick.
I
So this
understand,
year
but there were 200 people on the first night and 70 at the second, and I think that had a lot to do
It won't
with,
be that bad this year.
I think that
Not
had-
a lot of stuff on the warrant.
I think that had a lot to do with, also in why this didn't get through. We had a specific audience as opposed to. a
Center
general.
Street's on hold again? Center Street?
That's on March 3rd, next meeting.
Okay.
In red?
Yes, in red, yeah. I'll continue again. I don't know what they
You
do.
good a minute?
Okay,
I'm cold. It's time to go home.
crying out loud.
You're such a wuss.
All right, has everyone read the minutes? I have one correction I'd like to make. On page 2, near the bottom, in the last paragraph under culvert alteration, it said, Mr. Moore asked Brooke to contact John Mason to get the deeds for all growers. He noted that it needed to be resolved soon because the melt would cause the pond level to rise and the dam would cause people's basements to flood. That should be could. It's not a definite.
Oh, could cause.
Could cause,
Would.
could cause people's
Could.
basements to flood, not would. It's not necessarily will do that, but it could. Other than that, I think it was fine.
Yep. Very good job.
So,
Move to approve the minutes of our, February 3rd as amended.
second?
Sec,
All right, we have a second. It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of February 3rd with corrections. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None?
motion to adjourn?
Did you say you had John
Second.
Mason's number? I gotta get.
I do.
Okay.
Who seconded?
I did.
Jim did? Okay. It's been moved and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And we're out. Thank you very much.